Let's take a look at consideration and initiating structure. Studies conducted at Ohio State University in the 1950s identified 1,800 specific examples of leadership behavior that were reduced to 150 questionnaire items on leadership function. The functions are also referred to as the dimensions of leadership behavior. This research became the foundation for the most future research about leadership behavior, attitudes, and style. The researchers asked team members to describe their supervisors by responding to the questionnaire. Leaders were also asked to rate themselves on leadership dimensions. Two dimensions accounted for 85% of the descriptions of leadership behavior: consideration and initiating structure. Consideration is the degree to which the leader creates an environment of emotional support, warmth, friendliness, and trust. The leader creates this environment by being friendly and approachable, looking out for the personal welfare of the group, keeping the group abreast of new developments, and doing small favors for the group. Leaders who score high on consideration factor typically are friendly and trustworthy, earn respect, and have a warm relationship with team members. Leaders with low scores on consideration factor typically are authoritarian and impersonal in their relationships with group members. Initiating structure means defining and organizing relationships in the group by assigning specific tasks, specifying procedures to be followed, and clarifying expectations. A team leader who helped group members establish realistic goals would be engaged in initiating structure. The task-related leadership behaviors and attitudes are specific aspects of initiating structure. The task-related versus relationship-related classification remains a useful framework for understanding leadership attitudes, behaviors, and practices. Task-related in this context means that behavior, attitude, or skill focuses more on the task to be performed than on the interpersonal aspect of leadership. A synthesis of many studies indicates that the combination of leadership traits and behaviors, both task and relationship, accounts for a minimum of 31% of the differences in leadership effectiveness. Although certain traits may predispose individuals to certain behaviors, according to the research in question, leader behaviors have a bigger impact on effectiveness than do traits. Effective leaders adapt to the situation. For example, a leader who's responsible for psychologically immature group members will find it necessary to supervise them closely. Given that a major responsibility of leadership is to produce change, the leader must set the direction of that change. Direction setting is part of creating a vision and a component of strategy. Effective leaders consistently hold group members to high standards of performance. High performance standards can also take the form of challenging the thinking of others. When performance is measured against high standards, productivity is likely to increase since people tend to live up to the expectations of their supervisors. This is called the Pygmalion effect and works in subtle, almost unconscious ways. An axiom of effective leadership is to make good use of the strengths of group members rather than concentrating effort on patching up areas for improvement. The effective leader helps people improve yet still capitalizes on strengths. To bring about constructive change, the leader must take risks and be willing to implement those risky decisions. You'll recall that technical competence and knowledge of the business are important leadership characteristics. They enable the leader to provide group members with hands-on guidance about how much to accomplish important work. Often, leaders can be effective by asking tough questions rather than providing answers. A tough question is one that makes a person or a group stop and think about why they're doing or not doing something. In this way, group members are forced to think about the effectiveness of their activities. A leadership behavior on the borderline between a task orientation and a relationship orientation is to demand that workers collaborate with each other. The task focus is that information sharing takes place, whereas the relationship focus is that group members must work collaboratively with each other. Leadership involves influencing people. So it follows that many effective leadership attitudes, behaviors, and practices deal with interpersonal relationships. The interpersonal aspects of leadership are critically important to influence. There are 7 relationship oriented attitudes and behaviors that impact leadership and influence. Getting people pulling in the same direction and collaborating smoothly is a major interpersonal challenge. This might mean speaking to many people and involving many different stakeholders. A major part of relationship oriented leadership is to engage in management openness, or a set of leader behaviors particularly relevant to subordinates' motivation to voice their opinion. As described in the discussion of charismatic and transformational leadership, inspiring others is an essential leadership practice. Inspiring people usually involves appealing to their emotions and to their values. To inspire people, effective leaders motivate them by satisfying higher level needs, such as needs for achievement, personal growth, a sense of belonging, recognition, self esteem, and a feeling of control over one's life. Supportive behavior towards team members usually increases leadership effectiveness. A supportive leader gives frequent encouragement and also displays caring even about non work related matters, such as the health of a ill family member. A major part of top leadership's role is to help promote values and principles that contribute to the welfare of individuals and to organizations. This is relationship oriented because it deals directly with the emotions and attitudes of people. A useful byproduct of relationship oriented leadership behaviors is that they reduce ambiguity in the minds of subordinates. Ambiguity leads to stress for many workers, so stress is reduced when more structure is provided. A leader's combination of attitudes and behaviors leads to a certain regularity and predictability in dealing with group members. Leadership style is the relatively consistent pattern of behavior that characterizes a leader. Studying leadership style is an extension of understanding leadership behaviors and attitudes. Most classifications of leadership style are based on the dimensions of consideration and initiating structure. An important insight into leadership style is that personality traits influence which style will be natural for a given individual. The same association exists between leadership behaviors. Sharing decision making with group members and working with them side by side has become the generally accepted leadership approach in the modern organization. A useful perspective for understanding collective and participative leadership is that they are based on networks of people working together and sharing information. A social network consists of a set of individuals and the relationships that bind them, such as people within a work group who trust each other enough to accept their advice on a problem. Participative leadership share decision making with group members. The terms shared leadership, collaborative leadership, and team leadership all refer to the same idea as participative leadership. Participative leadership encompasses so many behaviors that it can be divided into 3 subtypes: consultative, consensus, and democratic. Consultative leaders refer to group members before making a decision. However, they retain the final authority to make decisions. Consensus leaders strive for consensus. They encourage group discussion about an issue and then make a decision that reflects the general agreement and that group members will support. Democratic leaders confer final authority on the group. They function as collectors of group opinion and take a vote before making a decision. The participative style is based on management openness because the leader accepts suggestions for managing the operation from group members. Welcoming ideas from below is considered crucial because as technology evolves and organizations decentralize, frontline workers have more independence and responsibility. The participative style encompasses the teamwork approach. Predominant behaviors of participative leaders include coaching team members, negotiating their demands, and collaborating with others. The participative style is well suited to managing competent people who are eager to assume responsibility. Such people want to get involved in making decisions and giving feedback to management. Participative leadership does have some problems. It often results in extensive and time consuming team meetings and committee work. If democratic leadership goes one step further, the result is extreme macro management, which is referred to as the laissez faire style of leadership. Autocratic leaders are considered task oriented because they place heavy emphasis on getting tasks accomplished. Typical autocratic behaviors include telling people what to do, asserting authority, and serving as a model for team members. Employee attitudes towards acceptance of power and authority can also influence how well employees adapt to authoritarian leadership. A servant leader serves constituents by working on their behalf to help them achieve their goals, not the leader's own goals. The idea behind servant leadership, as formulated by Robert K. Greenleaf, is that leadership derives naturally from a commitment to service. Serving others, including employees, customers, and the community, is the primary motivation for the servant leader. Servant leadership focuses on ethical behavior and constructive relationships between leader and follower. True leadership emerges from a deep desire to help others. A servant leader is therefore a moral leader. Servant leadership has been accomplished when group members become wiser, healthier, and more autonomous. The following are key aspects of servant leadership. A servant leader is more concerned with helping others than with acquiring power, prestige, financial reward, and status. He or she is conscious of the needs of others and is driven by a desire to satisfy them. Instead of attempting to impose his or her will on others, the servant leader listens carefully to understand what course of action will help others accomplish their goals. After understanding others, the best course of action can be chosen. Being trustworthy is a foundation behavior of servant leadership. Honest with others, giving up control, and focusing on the well-being of others. Usually such leaders do not have to work hard at being trustworthy because they're already moral. Even though the servant leader is idealistic, he or she recognizes that one individual cannot accomplish everything. Therefore, the leader listens carefully to an array of problems facing group members and then concentrates on a few. A servant leader looks for opportunities to play the role of the Good Samaritan. A servant leader shows sensitivity to the personal concerns of group members, such as workers being worried about taking care of a disabled parent. As a result of the behaviors just described, servant leaders often ignite a cycle of service by acting as a role model servant behavior. Finally, there's a focus on growth that leads to satisfaction. In general, an entrepreneur is a task-oriented and charismatic person. Entrepreneurs drive themselves and others relentlessly, yet their personalities also inspire others. Although some authorities disagree about whether an entrepreneurial personality exists, evidence is accumulated that many entrepreneurs share a recognizable personality pattern. Entrepreneurs have stronger achievement motives than most other leaders. To accomplish what they think needs to be accomplished, entrepreneurs are willing to work extraordinary hours. The 12-hour day, 7-day work week is not unusual. Entrepreneurs are highly enthusiastic, partially because they're so excited about their achievements. The enthusiasm of entrepreneurs often develops into passion. A theoretical analysis of the entrepreneurial passion suggests that it is invested in three roles. First is the inventor role of recognizing an opportunity, such as seeing the need for a product or a service. Second is the founder role of creating the venture, with all the associated managerial and leadership responsibilities. Third is the developer role of growing the venture, such as expanding into the global market. The natural link is that entrepreneurship is inherently proactive. To be an entrepreneurial, one has to scan the environment and find an opportunity and then capitalize on the opportunity. Entrepreneurs are noted for seizing upon opportunity. When a deal is on the horizon, they push themselves and those around them extra hard. While engaged in one meeting, their minds typically begin to focus on the next. Entrepreneurs at their best are visionaries. As with other types of effective leaders, they see opportunities others fail to observe. Specifically, they have the ability to identify a problem and arrive at a solution. Entrepreneurs are not ideally suited by temperament to working within the mainstream of a bureaucracy. Many successful entrepreneurs are people who are frustrated by the constraints of a bureaucratic system. One reason that entrepreneurs have difficulty with bureaucracy is that they focus their energies on products, services, and customers rather than on employees. Entrepreneurs have been pronounced characteristic of thinking about future ideas and business opportunities even before the current business is running smoothly. One reason that many entrepreneurs focus on the future is that their enthusiasm and passion for their present product or service may fade over time. It might help to change and refine ideas rather than sticking to the same plan. As the entrepreneur learns about his or her product, customers, and the market, the original idea might evolve. Several researchers and observers argue that women have certain acquired traits and behaviors that suit them for relationship oriented leadership. Consequently, women leaders frequently exhibit a cooperative, empowering style that includes nurturing team members. According to this same perspective, men are inclined towards a command and control, task oriented leadership style. Women find participative management more natural because they appear to feel more comfortable interacting with people. Furthermore, it's argued that women's natural sensitivity to people gives them an edge over men in encouraging group members to participate in decision making. As corporate leaders, women tend to place greater emphasis on forming caring, nurturing relationships with employees. When an employee falls short of expectations, women are more likely to buffer criticism by including positives. Gender differences in communication also are reflected in leadership style. Above all, women are more likely than men to use spoken communication for building relationships and giving emotional support. Men focus more on disseminating information and demonstrating competence. Women are therefore more likely to choose a relationship oriented leadership style. To what extent the stereotypes of men and women leaders are true is difficult to judge. Even if male and female differences in leadership style do exist, they must be placed in proper perspective. Both men and women leaders differ among themselves in leadership style. Plenty of male leaders are relationship oriented, and plenty of women are highly task oriented. Perhaps the best approach to leadership takes advantage of the positive traits of both men and women. To compete in the global marketplace, companies need a diverse leadership team, including both men and women. Even if gender differences in leadership style do exist, a review of the scientific evidence indicates that they do not have a meaningful impact on leadership effectiveness. In most large organizations, leaders not only provide feedback to group members, but also receive feedback that gives them insight into the effects of their attributes and behavior. In particular, 360-degree feedback is a formal evaluation of supervisors based on input from people who work for and with them, sometimes including customers and suppliers. It's also referred to as multi-rater feedback. The specific 360-degree form is often customized to particular organizational needs, but standardized forms are widely used. Specialists in the field view 360-degree feedback as more suited for its original purpose of development for a manager or leader than for administrative purposes such as performance evaluation and salary administration. When used for development, 360-degree feedback should emphasize qualitative comments rather than strictly quantitative rating. The data from the survey can be used to help leaders fine-tune their attitudes and behavior. When used for purposes of development, the leader will often provide a self-rating on each dimension and then compare self-ratings with those of subordinates as well as other work associates. When there's a large gap between self-ratings and ratings of others, professionally trained counselors or business coaches should be involved in 360-degree feedback. For best results, 360-degree surveys must reflect those behaviors and attitudes that the organization values most highly. Care should also be taken that the dimensions measured reflect important aspects of leadership functioning. The person receiving the multiple feedback should have some say about who the raters will be. The supervisor of the person receiving the survey is also invited to suggest who should provide feedback. Customize the assessment dimensions based on the leadership competencies that are associated with success in your organization. Train workers in giving feedback and at receiving it as well. Giving constructive feedback takes coaching, training, and practice. It's helpful to inform the workers who provide the feedback that feedback should be constructive, not punitive. Create an action plan for improvement for each leader based on the feedback. Ensure that managers rated have full ownership of the feedback information so they'll perceive the feedback as being geared towards personal development rather than administrative control. One problem with 360-degree feedback is anonymity. There's the potential that an angry subordinate can write an insulting and crushing comment about a manager on the 360-degree feedback form. This criticism might be without merit. An underlying theme of our discussion of leadership styles is that there is no one best or most effective style. A study of many executives revealed that leaders who get the best results do not rely on one style. Instead, they use several different styles in one week, such as being autocratic in some situations and democratic in others. Another consideration is the national culture in which the leadership takes place. The organizational culture also influences which leadership style will be tolerated and effective. A friendly, collaborative culture calls for more of a consensus style of leadership. In contrast, in perform or perish culture, a more directive or autocratic leadership style will be effective. The leader member exchange, or LMX theory, is that the leader establishes different quality relationships with each group member. Part of establishing a high quality relationship would be for the leader to vary his or her style to meet the needs of each subordinate.